I want to talk in approaching soft power. Thank you. In approaching soft power, I'd like to look at the key words of this conference, focusing in on people, EdTech, and inspiration. And in this morning's sessions, I've heard a lot on the people side, a lot on the education technology side, but very little on inspiration in the sessions that I've attended. People, EdTech, and inspiration. The people side has been perhaps picked up this morning in the sessions around demographics, around digital, and particularly with implications for jobs and learning, and then globalization. So the meta trends have been talked about. But inspiration has been a little in short supply. So in focusing on inspiration, I want to look at the link between inspiration and the work that my organization does, the British Council, and the topic of soft power. Where is it that inspiration comes from? For me, inspiration comes from others, other people, particularly from their stories. And we've heard Joseph Nye's name mentioned in the opening remarks, the man whose understanding or discussion about soft power has given rise to this expression. But the American defense and security analyst, John Arquila, talks about victory nowadays is less about whose army wins and more about whose story wins. So in that sense, I want to talk about stories and people. Let's see if this works. Yes, so where to start? Let's start with a simple definition so that we can have a shared understanding. This is drawn on Joseph Nye's well-known definition about soft power being about the ability to attract and influence and not force others into your camp or to your point of view. And in short, it's about the things that people love about your country and your culture, as opposed to the things that people fear. Soft power takes many different forms. And I'm showing you here what I describe as the spectrum of soft power, and particularly in relation to international relations. Now, my organisation, the British Council, is the UK's international organisation for cultural relations and educational opportunities. And we tend to focus in that area which is described up there as access to opportunity and exchange. Those are our main areas of focus. But sometimes we veer into aid, and sometimes we veer into promotion. But we are not projectors. We are not about messaging and advocacy and campaigning. We are much more interested in the power of example and experience and exchange. But as you will see, at the extreme end of the spectrum is what we refer to as hard power, military power, where we use muscle to influence and get our way in the world. But you'll see right at the bottom of this slide, you'll see the term cultural relations. And for us at the British Council, cultural relations is the area where learning through the sharing of skills, knowledge, and experience, that is what we consider to be cultural relations. So it's not about holding up a megaphone and saying our way is the best. It is about sharing our experience and our worldviews and opening ourselves up to others' experience and others' worldviews. So in the spirit of telling a story, once upon a time, in the late 1930s, Europe and much of the world went to war. Here is a photo of the London Underground system in 1940, with people sheltering from bombs, nightly attacks on the capital of the United Kingdom. Joseph Nye was born in 1937, but 3 years before that, in 1934, the British Council was established. The British Council was established because there was a concern that there were gathering storm clouds, there were forces of aggression in the world, and that perhaps there was another way. There were alternative ways of doing international relations and sharing ideas and approaching shared problems. But trouble galvanizes the mind. Stress galvanizes thinking. And in 1940, the previous Director General of the British Council came up with this aim. And I want to focus in on something in the middle called friendly knowledge and understanding. In 1940, when Britain, for a few months, or more than a few months, for over a year, stood alone in Europe against Nazi aggression, for somebody to think that friendly knowledge and understanding and connecting with others through education and culture, that was enlightened, that was powerful. And 80 years later, we are still here, and the concept of soft power is alive and well. Now, soft power is a crowded field. If you just look at the United Kingdom, here are a few examples of different soft power actors from our country, from museums to universities to broadcasters to sports organizations, from government ministries. It is a crowded field. But there's still trouble in the world. This photo was taken in Syria in 2015. And it was from an arts project that the British Council were managing at the time with Syrian refugees around the Middle East. And cultural relations and the British Council, which was established back in the 30s to deal with some of the world's really difficult challenges, still exists. And here is a picture of our chief executive and my counterpart in Moscow, where apparently the British Council no longer exists. But this photo tells another story. Cultural relations work is still ongoing in Moscow between the UK and Russia. And despite the political relations being troubled, there are some really important cultural and educational cooperation activities happening out of sight from most people. And some of the best relationships we have globally are between the UK's science institutions, some of the UK's transport and city authorities with their Russian counterparts. So even in a troubled world, cultural relations and soft power can keep conversations going, can keep relationships on track. And in a way, what it says is, it says to me that geoculture, rather than geopolitics, is more important. It matters more. When many people are asked, who do you like, who do you dislike, many people around the world, particularly in some of the world's hotspots and trouble spots, might offer a negative opinion about the United States. But if those same people are asked, and where do you want to live, they may actually say, the United States. There are many contradictions in the world. And we are living in an era where the personal and the institutional, those links, are arguably more important than government links. There is an increasing distrust at present around the world of governments, and so people, civil society, have a really important role to play in strengthening relations. Now, British Council in Kazakhstan, what does cultural relations look like? Well, here are a few photos. This gentleman is involved. He's a teacher on our teacher development program called English for Success in the Mangistau region of Western Kazakhstan, looking at new approaches to pedagogy and how to support Kazakhstan's trilingual reforms. This young lady was one of the contestants in our science communication competition, FameLab. It took place at Nazarbayev University, and it's part of a global competition that we do on behalf of the Cheltenham Science Festival in the UK. And it's about popularizing science so that idiots like me can understand difficult scientific concepts in 3 minutes from somebody who can talk quickly, humorously, and effectively to explain it. This is one of the leading actors from Gecko, one of the UK's award-winning theatre and physical theatre and surreal drama companies, at a show they did with Kazakh actors in Almaty 2 years ago. One of the things that this company does is it provokes and it gets us as audience members to imagine the world in a slightly different light, to think differently, to connect with each other differently. So, is there anything in cultural relations? Is there any value in it? What do we know? Well, we are seeing increasingly these global trends. This is taken from last year, looking at a number of states and how many cultural institutes they have around the world and how they're investing in cultural institutes, either to promote, either to share, or for diplomacy reasons. But you can see, with all these states investing in cultural relations, there probably is something in it, because nobody does something for nothing. People do something because they think there's something in it for them. But what does the research tell us? Here are just 4 examples of serious research into soft power that my own organization has either been part of or has become interested in. So Soft Power Today, the University of Edinburgh did this study. What did that study tell us? It told us that there are serious economic and strategic advantages that come from promoting your culture and your political ideas globally. The value of trust. This was done by Ipsos Mori, the British Council, and YouGov. And basically, this piece of research showed that trust pays. If you want to attract more people, more business, and more interactions to your country, developing trust pays. Britain's global future from the Respublica think tank. This study showed that the power of example by sharing consistently your country's values around transparency, accountability of your cultural and political institutions, again, benefits accrue. And then finally, the soft power superpowers. This links to the ranking, perhaps the world's #1 ranking at present for soft power, that is conducted annually by the University of Southern California, Facebook, and Portland Communications. Quite a scientific method that sits behind this research, but at present they rate the United Kingdom, France, Germany, the US, and then Japan as the top 5 superpowers in the world for soft power in terms of the influence that one gets from it. So what are the things? Let's sum it up. The benefits that soft power gives. The research shows that it increases the number of international students and international visitors that come to your country. And also the foreign direct investment and exports that your country makes rise for every 1% of increase in what you put into soft power, you get out. For students, it's a 0.73% rise, according to the University of Edinburgh, and a 0.66% rise in foreign direct investment. But essentially, the more countries that your country has a cultural institute in, the greater the benefit that returns to the parent state. So again, we don't do this simply for goodwill. We do it because there is a benefit back to our countries in sharing our culture and our education. And this is aided and abetted by if you have good prosperity levels and if you also have good internet connectivity, according to the research. So I'll leave you with two photos. This one taken at Nazarbayev University from one of our Young Scientists events, a panel discussion led by young Kazakhstanis, and you can see the joy and you can see the engagement. And this was at Creative Central Asia, an annual leadership event we run for Central Asian countries to look at the creative economy and share new approaches for that. And again, look at the engagement in this photo. When people are optimistic, when people are engaged, when people are happy and exercising authority, they do good work. And this is what success looks like with soft power. A final comment, where is Kazakhstan on all of this? We heard about Ruhani Jangaru from our moderator. Kazakhstan has just set up, under the First President's Foundation, has set up its first office in London doing cultural relations in Northern Europe. Kazakhstan has an international engagement strategy. It has massive investment into digitization and digital learning, some great new education reforms, and the return of sustained economic growth. So the future looks bright for Kazakhstan in relation to soft power and cultural relations. Thank you.